Hello everyone. My name is Yashar. I wanted to just give a brief overview of some incidents and harassment issues and the events that led up to the conclusion that Mr. Greg Eziyahu um, is not stable mentally, and that we need to take notice of him and be aware as you interact with him, especially concerning uh, entities that he is ahead of, and business ventures that he's trying to initiate, uh, so that when you are interacting with him, that you will be aware that he is liable to erupt, for lack of better words, at any given time and become belligerent and aggressive. And so I want to detail my personal experience with him beginning on early morning at Nando's, um, and in the month of the beginning of October of 2023. I had invited Mr. Eziahu to participate in a business orientative type meeting, so that we could begin um, the beginning stages of a local business venture. Initially, he wasn't part of the planned meeting, but because we had previous interactions um, involving his association, I didn't necessarily invite him um, because of anything specific pertaining to his uh, capital or um, significant special interest. I just invited everyone that was in the association, including another gentleman who did not show up or wasn't not interested. And so we had one meeting. It went very well. We scheduled a second meeting, and during the second meeting, um, Greg, prior to the meeting, had told me that he did not feel like um, that the initiating member of the meeting was being forthright with us, and that he had some concerns that he wanted to express, because he felt um, like things weren't totally out front and there was some hidden agendas. And so when we came into the meeting, we began the meeting, and when Greg began to speak, he began to aggressively outline some of his concerns. Was calling the other gentleman a slave, that he was going to enslave us, that he wanted to enslave us. He was saying that he wasn't going to be working for free. He accused um, Scott, who was the master chef of this particular engagement, accused Scott of not contributing anything towards making any of the items that we had discussed to begin the business venture. Um, and so that, Greg felt like everybody was putting all the responsibility on him, that he was going to be using one of his companies and some of his workers to start this business off, and that he was being extorted. He started accusing the other gentleman of calling him racial slurs, which that gentleman never implied that he wanted us to be his slaves. He never implied that he wanted us to bear the responsibility, and that he just presented an idea and that we were supposed to up and run with it, with no contributions from him whatsoever. He never implied any of that. So I'm not really sure um, Well, I do have an idea where Greg got that from because we did have that conversation uh, in detail, in great detail. But once he expressed those things, um, he became very violent towards the other member, telling him that um, because the other gentleman, you know, kept asking him at what point did I ever imply that I was going to enslave you? Like we gave you this idea, and Greg, he said, "Can you please explain to me what made you feel this way?" And Greg said to him, well, before that, you know, I say anything else to you, you need to fix your face when you're talking to me. And 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 he said something else to him that was derogatory. And at that point, the situation escalated, and I intervened and had to persuade the other gentleman that it would be best if we went outside. And so once we went outside, Greg followed outside, and just continued to verbally abuse all of us. Um, he told me that I was taking sides of that gentleman, and they referred to him as Nigga, a nigga. Excuse me for saying that. And I kept informing him. I didn't understand why that someone who is supposed to be uniting African Americans in Botswana, promoting the well-being and the development of African Americans, was so upset about a racial slur that he heard uh, one tribe from Africa call another tribe from Africa. He was upset, but he was very comfortable calling other African Americans that word, a word which I don't use because I understand the historical pain behind that word. And I make no justification about it just because it's become popularized in today's society. And so we went back and forth for about 10 minutes with um, vulgar language, profanity. I mean, and the worst profanity that you can think of, and threats to do bodily harm to each other. Um, and Scott pretty much persuaded us all to leave. And so, as the other gentleman left, then I left. And upon me leaving, uh, Greg and I had a verbal disagreement to the point where we were close in proximity. And I let him know that from this point on, when he sees me, not to approach me. Don't speak to me again. Don't approach me. And so we left. We left the premises, Nando's premises, and maybe about an hour after that, after I had gotten home and explained the situation to my family, Greg makes a post in the group, and basically in his post he showed no accountability for how he escalated the situation. He basically made things up because in this event, not only did he attack Nigel's credibility and his character, he began to say ignorant things towards his family, ignorant things directly towards his children, um, just complete disrespect. And the disrespect wasn't so much in what he was saying; it was the tone of voice that he had. Um, I felt as if we were uh, young teenagers on the street in violence, gang violence, or something of that nature. It was not indicative of someone who's leading an association or indicative of someone who's trying to unite people and bring um, different walks of black and brown people together. And it's not someone that you would think that is associating with Christian churches and pastors and things of that nature. That's not somebody that we thought that about. And so after that incident, I encountered Greg 4 times specifically that I can remember. Um, twice in a mall, in a grocery store, in which I let him know the initial first time I didn't even speak to him. He came up to me and said, I saw you and I thought that I would greet you. I just looked at him and he walked away because he could tell by the look on my face I wasn't very pleased with him. The second time I saw him was at a local restaurant, and he greeted me while I was speaking to someone. Now I didn't see him coming, so I greeted him because he caught me off guard. And then, but when I looked at him sternly, and he walked away, and he said, "Yeah, I just wanted to say hello," and I just looked at him, and he left. The next time I saw him was passing in a mall, in passing. He spoke to me again, and I just walked past him. Um, One of the reasons why I carried this demeanor towards him, because I was so disgusted to be associated with someone who could treat someone else like the way he treated them in that restaurant, regardless if he had a discrepancy with the gentleman or some perceived um, notion of how he was going to treat him. A gentleman that I consider a good friend. I just didn't understand how you could treat somebody like that and approach somebody like that when they gave you no inclination that those things that you were accusing them of were going to happen. And so for him to say he's nobody's slave or cotton picker, um, when you had 2 other gentlemen at that meeting who can verify that that word never came out of that man's mouth. He never accused him or associated him with as a slave. He never demeaned him. He never implied that he was beneath him or anything in such a way. And so, for somebody to conjure up these thoughts in their mind based on um, something they had seen on a movie, because he gave an example of something he's seen in New Jack City, a movie called New Jack City, which is a movie that uh, is almost 30 years old, as a reference point for what one group of individuals in one country is doing to another group of individuals in another country. It bewilders me, because even though the gentleman that he was speaking to is from the country where they use that word, the word akata is from the country in which Greg originates from, and they're almost like the same people. But that's beyond the point. The point is that the gentleman never used those words towards him. So these assumptions that Greg made are indicative of somebody that has mental health issues. He's conjuring up things in his mind, associating them with somebody he feels has this position or had previous experience with someone, and now he's transferring those emotions and those conversations and those interactions to someone new. And that's just completely unfair. Completely unfair. And there's some other things that went on, because Greg had previously met this gentleman before, a long, long time ago, and he recalled an incident, and he's just spinning things completely out of control that was unnecessary. He never gave the gentleman any chance to explain to him or gave him any examples. He just flew off the handle, completely embarrassed us all at this establishment, an establishment where everybody in this establishment knows who I am, because that's what they told me. I didn't even know they knew who I was. But me and the gentleman went back the next day to the establishment and apologized to management and apologized to all the individuals, not knowing that Scott had went there right after the incident. But we went back and apologized to the individuals. And they told me, yeah, because we know you from here. We know you well. We know you're this guy, and we've never seen you act like that. So late May of 2000 and if I want to go back briefly, and I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. I want to go back briefly to I want to say February of 2024. I was we were involved in the same business venture because it had progressed, and I was telling someone that I was considering doing business with concerning this business venture, uh, uh, soliciting them as a supplier, and I began to tell them about the incident. And so in May of 2025, um, Greg approaches me because I guess he had ran into this individual. Greg approaches me and he begins to ask me questions about me speaking to this individual about this incident. Now, at this time, we were in Spar, and I was coming from the kiosk, and Greg was coming out of the till. So I had no idea that he was there. I turned around and was talking to a potential customer, someone that works at Spar, and some of the employees of Spar, they all do business with me. As a matter of fact, they could do business with other people that are major businesses, but they do business with me because I take care of them personally, and I make exceptions for them. I allow them to make payments on things and things of that nature. I've just always had a good rapport. I've always treated them well with respect, and they do business with me, and it spreads. I mean, to the point where even when new employees come and old ones leave, they still do business with me. And so um, he startled me because he came out of nowhere and just started talking. And the first thing he said to me was, "You're always flirting with someone." And I was shocked. And I'm like, I don't understand. You just see me. You didn't say hello or nothing. You just saw me, and because you saw me talking to someone of the opposite sex, I'm automatically flirting with them. You have no idea what the conversation's about. You don't continually see me anywhere, but I'm always flirting with somebody. And so he starts asking me about who did I speak to? Do I know this person? And at the time that he was asking me about the situation, the name that he gave me, I wasn't familiar with, but it turned out to be somebody I did know. And I don't know, it just escalated because he kept telling me to keep his name out of my mouth. And I told him, he said that I'm too old to be talking to little kids. And the gentleman that he's referring to is like 25 years old. And I said, first of all, he's not a child. He's a grown man. Second of all, I have the right to talk about anything I want to, especially if I was directly involved with it. And so we had a semi-heated discussion for about 10 minutes. I decided enough was enough, and I was going to leave the store. We actually had left outside of the store, but in front of the store, I decided to leave the situation. And I left the situation, and I didn't want to take that energy home to my family. So I went and sat at a restaurant with some clients that I've known for quite some time. And I was explaining to them the situation and what I just went through and why I was so aggravated. And maybe I had been there for maybe 6 or 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. And Greg comes walking around the corner, and he walks around the corner into the pub. And I looked at the clients and I said, "So here he is. I'm not interested in going through this." And Greg says to me, "Look at you. You always sitting with white people. All you ever do is sit with white people. You don't even like your own people. Then he walks a little further into the bar area, and he says, "You see, this guy says that he's black, but he doesn't even represent his own people. He's a sellout to his own people." Loudly, like he's making an announcement. So I went to confront him, and what is your problem? Things of that nature. We got into this discussion, a heated discussion, for maybe about 3 or 4 minutes when a patron who was one of my clients tried to separate us and ask us, can we shouldn't do this, don't argue, and, trying to prevent a physical altercation. At that particular point in time, I said, hey, look, this person's right. Let's step over behind the wall and have a conversation. If you want to talk to me, let's have a conversation. It took me 10 minutes to get him to inch closer to the wall. Look, let's stop yelling in front of all these people. Let's talk over here. And then after we went over there and talked, we went back and forth. I told him that his personality and his face looked ugly. And that's when he proceeded to tell me, over a series of minutes, that you're fat and out of shape. You're always walking. You don't have no car. You're wearing funny looking clothes. Look at these funny looking clothes you got on. You ain't got no money. When we were in that incident in Man Nando's, all y'all was there, and none of y'all have no money. I was trying to protect you all, and you need to stop talking about this. Why are you still talking about this? And I told him, I said, well, first of all, I'm allowed to talk about it. Second of all, it's not over to me because there was no resolution. And the resolution that I need from you is you need to apologize for what you did. You need to acknowledge what you did, how you escalated that situation, how you embarrassed a group of people, and how you caused problems. He refused to do any of that and defended his actions, defended his tone of voice after at least 50 to 60 expletives, racial slurs, vulgar language, insults, attacking my personal life, my personal character, my reputation, attacking the way I do things, mentioning my faith. You're always in Hebrew. I was trying to help you. And I told him, I said, I didn't need any of your help. Any of your help. I never asked you for help. Why didn't I ask you for help? Because I'm not running around begging anybody for help. I'm not soliciting help. And for you to bring up my faith and what I believe as some type of detriment to you being able to help me, or you being concerned, or me not accepting the help that you needed, or whatever you thought you was going to do, you know, you think more of yourself than who you are. And for you to stand in front of all these people and attack my character, and you don't think that I'm not going to warn people about who you are and what you are, because this man is in a prominent position, or trying to be in a prominent position, dealing with um, um, ministers and diplomats and people that are in influential positions with the government of Botswana, um, positioning himself as someone who's here to unite people. And that's not who he is. He's a destructor, and he has mental issues. So we went and on with that for about 15, 20 minutes. That whole scenario, once he walked into the restaurant, took about an hour. I decided after a while I had had enough, because there was not going to be a resolution. The resolution that he wanted was for me to stop talking about the incident. And I refused to allow him to make me say that I was going to talk about an incident that I had every right to talk about. And I wanted to know from him that if I did not stop talking about this incident, what was going to be the consequence? And he just kept telling me that I better stop talking, keep his name out of my mouth. And I told him that I'm going to continue to speak and let people know who you are. I'm going to continue to let people know what you did, because you were bold enough to do it in public. You are bold enough to be exposed in public, because you're a detriment to more people than just me. And it's not, and yes, he threatened me, he attacked my character, but I'm not here saying that I'm afraid of him. I am afraid for my family because I want to know while we were standing in that parking lot talking, he said, "You have a beautiful family. You got a lot to lose. Remember that. You have a you don't know my family. Why are you mentioning my family? Are you attacking me in public because you're jealous that I have a family and you don't? Are you he also said things to me like, do I want him to go get me women because I'm always talking about him? Do I want the life that he has? I'm not interested in anything that you have. I'm not interested in being who you are. I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even associate myself with people like you. So because you see me now doesn't mean this is who I always have been, and you have no idea what I have and what I don't have. Just because I'm not running around showing you what I have or bragging about who I am, my substance and my character um, is not determined by items and things of that nature. However, I began to walk away. As I was walking away, I made it a point to call Nigel because I wanted to tell this gentleman exactly what was happening at this point, just as a witness. And as I was leaving, he began to somehow he got in his car. I don't know where his car was. I didn't because I know what his car looks like. I didn't even know. First of all, I want to know how did he come from one side of the mall to a different side of the mall because the side that his car was on, you can't enter into the mall that way. You have to walk all the way around to the front of the mall. But he came from the front of the mall. It only took me 15 seconds to walk across the street and start walking down the street. And at that particular time, he comes in his car and starts mocking me. Would you like a ride? Would you like a ride? No, I would not like a ride, is what I said to him. He said, I know you don't want to ride because you always walking. Everywhere you go, you ain't got no car. You just, I said, go home. Go home. And so he drives down the street. He makes a left turn onto one street, backs out of that street because it's a dead end, drives down to the next street, makes a left turn on that street, backs out of that street because that street's a dead end too, reverses the car, comes back in my direction, and he says, hey, look, man, for real though, would you like a ride home? And I said, man, leave me alone. And he says, yeah, I'm pretty sure. All you do is walk. You don't have nothing. You broke. He said, oh, and by the way, tell your wife I said hello. And then he drove off. To this day, that was over a month ago. To this day, I am still shaking with adrenaline and anger because not only am I upset that he approached me this way and that he continues to approach me even though I've asked him on countless occasions, leave me alone. I am upset because I'm associated with this gentleman. So if you come in contact with this gentleman and you allow him to be a part of your life at some point in your life, unless he gets serious mental and spiritual help and chemical help as well, you are going to feel the same way that I'm feeling. You're going to be disgusted that you know this gentleman. That's all I have to say. Thank you all for listening to me.